working to prepare today's homily, as I was struggling to find the direction of where the Lord is leading us, I asked the question, what is the salvific message of today's readings? What's the message that saves the soul? Isn't that the essential question? I think the first thing about that question is that we have to ask ourselves where we're focused. Because if our focus is off, then the way we are living our life is off. I think that question put well can be a question you wake up every day asking. What is the salvific act that has to happen today by which I participate in the promises of Jesus Christ? Today is a day of salvation. Today is a day in which I can lay a hold of the eternal life that God has called me to. That's a question of priority. It's a question of focus. It's a question of what we look at. And I don't just simply mean with our eyes. It's a question of what we hear, and I don't just simply mean by what we hear. This is a question of priority, a question of organization, a question of order, a question of what we find important. What drives my desires? A person who doesn't know what's driving them is being driven by the winds of culture. And if we are driven by every wind that blows, then we have no center. And that leads us into a life of fear and anxiety. Today's first reading, say to those whose hearts are frightened, be strong, fear not. Here is your God. He comes with vindication. I was speaking with some brother priests the other day, and they said that levels of anxiety today among many people, including among our young, are at levels that 40 years ago would have put a person into a psychiatric situation. Why are we, as American people, filled with so much anxiety? Part of it is because we're living according to the wrong promise. This is thematic in my homilies. I repeat this many, many times, mostly because I myself have to hear it, but also because all of us have to hear it. If we are focusing ourselves on worldly values, our life will be filled with anxiety. Because the world will always tell you you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you don't have enough, you cannot care for yourself, things are crushing around your head. And every venue that we have outside the gospel of Jesus Christ has that message in many ways, because in a consumeristic society, you have to be told you don't have what you need so that you buy another person's product. It's built into our culture to say that you don't have. You don't have enough. You don't have the right thing. It's not big enough. It's not good enough. It's not new enough. It's not quick enough. It's not enough savings. It's not enough money. It's not enough food. And our psyche as Americans has taken this on in such a way that it says that you're not thin enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not healthy enough. When you watch the news, does the news strike you as a peaceful venue? A venue that says things are okay and things are going to be okay? Does the news say, don't worry, God is here, he will be your vindication? But doesn't the news blather all over itself to say, worry, 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 worry? And when you look at the material things that we have in America, which we have to realize that we are in the lap of luxury in the United States of America. Most of our problems literally are first world problems, and yet we let those first world problems make us think like our entire life is out of whack. Because advertising tells us again and again and again and again and again is what you have is inadequate. You need my product. You need my thing. I've never in my life thought I needed a Generac generator until I saw that advertisement like 45 times. Right? Social media with our kids, parents. If you do not have filters with social media on your children are feeding themselves with anxiety and fear. Because I think we all know and understand that social media works on a computer-like algorithm that when you click on a video, it brings up like videos. And a young person who's looking at what they want to be is going to get videos telling them that they're not that. The videos that our kids are watching are saying you're not pretty enough, you're not thin enough, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you're not athletic enough, you're not going to succeed. And those messages are cranking up anxiety among our children and anxiety among our adults and anxiety amongst ourselves. We have to watch out for what we are texting and who we are texting. Because sometimes our loved ones aren't telling us what we want to hear. And then all of a sudden someone else says something that we want to hear. And then our face turns just a little bit away from our loved ones saying, they're not saying what I want to hear, but this person said it, this person said it, this person said it, this person said it. And then all of a sudden we're getting ourselves into lives of adultery. Hearts that are turned away from our spouses and hearts that are turned to people who should never be saying what they're saying to us in the first place. But because we so desire to be found positive, to be found good, to be found whatever, that when we hear it from someone like junkies after a hit, we go after it. Say to those whose hearts are frightened, be strong, fear not. What are you looking at? What are you looking for? I hope all of you got a bulletin from last weekend. If you didn't, you can get it online. Last weekend's bulletin puts us right now in the middle of a novena for people whose souls are despairing. The darkness that people can get themselves into that allows them to even contemplate something as extreme as suicide is a darkness that can never be dismissed. But that's the extreme of fear. It's the extreme of anxiety. It's the extreme of isolation. And right now as a parish, we need to be praying for those persons to pull them out. But you need to be praying for yourself to pull yourself out. Because the question has to be, what are we looking at? How is it that we get ourselves lost in so much darkness? The answer is because we're looking at the wrong thing, not the God who is our vindication, but all the things that are telling us that we're worthless, that we don't have, that we need more. And this is where we need to recognize that our Christian message is a Christian message for all people. Every economic strata, every culture, every class, every level of intelligence, whether healthy or sick, whether able or disabled. Our second reading today reminds us that the gospel message isn't just for the rich or just for the poor, but it's for everybody to share with one another equally this great faith that we have in Jesus Christ. Because the things that we see and the things that we hear have to be the things that bring us hope and allow us to live in a sincere peace and to stop allowing ourselves to chase our own tail like some dumb dog. It's cute when a dog does it. It's very confusing when human people are going around and around and around for no good purpose. We need to recognize the radicalness of this second reading today as well. Spoken and written in the early Roman society, the disparity between the rich and the poor is very incredible. But the Christian message was a message for everyone, slave, free, rich, poor, Parthian, Scythian, Elamite, every culture, every class, every world. At this particular time when the second reading was being written, the church was exploding because it was going everywhere, not contained to a particular place, not contained to a particular culture, not contained to a particular class. And we ourselves in this very room represent this great equity that belongs to our Christian faith. There are many of you here who are rich, and there are many of you here who are poor. There are many of you here who are healthy, and some who are sick. Each one of us in this room knowing that this is our Eucharist and this is our faith and that Jesus Christ is the great equalizer of life. Because what we are unequal in our material powers, we are all equal in our ability to believe. Our ability to live according to the level of Jesus Christ that has called us to serve one another truly. So what is the salvific message? What is the message today that's going to save our soul? What is it that Jesus Christ was saying today? I mean, ask yourself a simple question. Did today's gospel matter? I mean, it's kind of a weird gospel. Jesus spits on the ground. He puts the spit and mud on a blind man's face, on his eyes and on his ears, and he says this word Ephphatha, which is a word a priest says at every baptism. But what does that mean for us? The answer is that we have to be able to see and hear the true message. We have to focus ourselves on those things that matter and rid of ourselves of those things that don't matter. We do need to remember that the Christian message is a promise of happiness not only in the life to come, but also a promise of happiness here and now. It is possible to be at peace now. It is possible to live without anxiety now. It is possible for us to live in this world, always expecting the world that is to come. We never put our promise in this world. Therefore, we have to separate worldly desires from truly spiritual and eternal desires. Our boat starts to sink when we look at the world. Isn't that what St. Peter did whenever he walked out on the waters? When he stopped looking at Jesus, he began to sink, but Jesus pulled him back out. Are you looking at Jesus Christ? Is your daily bread the Word of God, or is it some news channel, some social media channel, some desire for a material thing that will never satisfy your heart? We have to be sincere in this desire to live a salvific life, a life that lays a hold of Jesus Christ himself. So what is it that we're supposed to see, and what is it that we're supposed to hear? The answer is what Teresa of Lisieux yelled out whenever she finally discovered her vocation. Teresa Lisieux, this young girl who died at the age of 24, who's a doctor of the church. She's a doctor of her church because of her doctrine of love, which is nothing more than the doctrine of Jesus Christ. She says whenever she finally discovers, she says, finally, Lord, I can yell out from my own lungs, my vocation is to love. If we took that seriously, then we would stop worrying about what kind of car we have, what kind of house we have, what kind of retirement we have, what kind of bed we have, what kind of clothes we have, what kind of colors on our wall, and we start worrying more about what other people need from us. Because here's the tow rope that yanks us out of anxiety, fear, and darkness and isolation. The tow rope that pulls us out is service. This is the great message of Jesus Christ. He is the one who's come to serve and not to be served. And even right before he died on the cross, he got down on his knees and he washed the disciples' feet, saying, if this is what I, your Lord and Master, do, how much more should you yourself wash one another's feet? The thing that we need to see and the thing that we need to hear is how we can serve one another truly. The love of God and the love of neighbor, the two great commandments, because they're the focus of our life. And we have to focus everything through these two loves. Are we worshiping the Lord truly? Are we praying truly to the Lord? Are we listening sincerely to the Lord, reading his word more than we're watching the news, more than we're watching social media? Have we established the worship of the Lord as the central act of our family? As Joshua says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Is that true for you? Can that be a banner across your doorpost? As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. How is it then that people who are in darkness of despair be pulled out? They start focusing on the needs of others more than their own needs. And I'm not trying to simplify that. I'm not trying to make that easy. But I am saying that's part of the solution. When we focus on the needs of others, then two things start to happen. We realize that we actually have something to offer. Think about that. If I actually say, I can help you, that means I actually believe I have a power to help you. I have the ability to lay my gifts and my talents and my possessions even down for your good. I have something to give. That's a positive statement about oneself. That says that God has given me all that I am, my life, my breath, my talents, and my abilities. Whenever I start seeing myself rightly as a person gifted, then I can say I can share that gift with others. It also says this, that I see you. Isn't that the desperate desire of every single one of us, to be seen? I see you. I see you. To look beyond oneself, beyond one's own needs, and to look at the needs of the others is to see the other in their own goodness. And to recognize in them some need, something that they can be receiving from us. The salvific message for us today is that we are the ones who are deaf and blind if we're not serving God and our neighbor. But to the degree that we open our eyes and start putting our gifts at the service of one another, at really sharing ourselves outward, then we break ourselves out of our own bubble and we start recognizing that other people have needs to be seen, to be served. So I'm going to boil this entire homily down to one simple sentence. The salvific message today is to ask yourself one question in every circumstance. One question in every circumstance. I don't care if this is going through the Dillon's checkout line. I don't care if this is when you're at the gas station. I don't care if this is whenever you're in your workplace. I don't care if this is when you're home. If you can ask yourself this one question every time you're in someone else's presence, the simple question is this: how can I help? How can I help? Children, whenever you walk at home from school and you walk into your house and you ask yourself the question, how can I help mom and dad? It may seem a simple thing just to throw your bag down on the floor, to throw your shoes down on the floor, but if you pick your bag up and you pick your shoes up, you're actually saying, mom and dad don't like that. You're actually caring about your mom and dad whenever you do what they ask you to do. You're saying, how can I help mom and dad? Spouses, whenever you come home and you say to yourself, how can I help? Recognizing the other person may have had a horribly bad day. Even if you yourself had a horribly bad day, to ask yourself the question, how can I help? Whenever they come home, it breaks you out of your bad day. It helps you see something other than what we can so much focus on, even at a manic level. Every time we drive by a church, every time we drive by a cemetery, every time we're in the presence of the tabernacle, to be able to ask ourselves the question, how can I help the Lord today? How can I be present to the Lord today? How can I speak his words of love today, even if by my actions? How can I help? How can I help? This is how we see and this is how we hear as Christians. This is what Jesus has done. The great epithet that God has given us through our baptism and speaks to us today is the simple thing: see other people. See God. Hear him. Hear the needs of the poor. Hear the needs of other people who are isolated or lonely or depressed. Look, listen, and see. And then ask the salvific question: how can I help?